starting a Canadian riot, pestering Kurt Cobain, and getting violent over calling Axl Rose a Bon Jovi lookalike. They may be one of the most famous rock bands ever, but GunsNRoses has made more than a few enemies on their way to the top. During a stop on their 1992 tour, Metallica and GunsNRoses were performing at Olympic Stadium in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. When James Hetfield was involved in a pyrotechnics accident, the frontman for Metallica was rushed to the hospital and the band's set was cut short.
There was an incident with the pyrotechnics. Unfortunately, James is on his way to the hospital right now.
GunsNRoses was supposed to perform after them, but the band didn't take the stage until after a 2.5-hour wait. The crowd grew restless during the long break, and the situation got worse after Axl Rose cut the performance short for vocal issues. The frustrated crowd began rioting in the stadium, setting fires and destroying property. A year later, during an interview with Rolling Stone, Hetfield didn't mince his words about touring with GNR, saying, "It was hard going on, dealing with Axl and his attitude. It's not something we'd want to do again." Speaking about the Olympic Stadium incident and Rose in particular, Hetfield added, "I was so disappointed in him because he could have won so many people over by continuing the show, and he went the exact opposite way and made things 10 times worse and jeopardized people's lives. There was a lot of unnecessary violence because of his attitude." In 2021, Metallica's Kirk Hammett told Kerrang that touring with GNR could be stressful because of Rose's unpredictability. No one knew what time he would show up, or if he would show up at all. GunsNRoses' 1988 sophomore album, GNR Lies, hit the headlines because of the track One in a Million, specifically due to the racist and homophobic content of the lyrics. One band that spoke out against One in a Million was the rock group Living Colour. According to ex-bassist Muzz Skilling's comments to the Los Angeles Times, Rose confronted him backstage during a concert in which both bands were performing. Reportedly, Rose asked if there was an issue between them while denying he was a racist and going on a diatribe about the reasons for the song. Skilling suggested they chat after GNR's set, but rather than defuse the situation, Rose went on stage and defended One in a Million in an abrasive fashion. Skillings added about the incident, "Something like that does remind you. It does smack you in the face in case you might have dozed off a little bit. That it's reality that certain attitudes don't change." At the next show, Living Colour's Vernon Reid took to the stage to condemn all forms of racism and homophobia before the group played their hit track Cult of Personality. Nirvana's Kurt Cobain never liked GunsNRoses. In fact, Metallica's Kirk Hammett revealed to NME that Cobain turned down touring with Metallica because GNR would be a part of it. He said, "He just went on and on about how he just didn't like what GunsNRoses stood for." Nirvana's drummer Dave Grohl confirmed this fact to Esquire as well, telling the publication that Axl Rose liked Nirvana a lot and desperately tried to convince Cobain to come on tour with GNR and Metallica. But Grohl said that the feeling wasn't mutual, saying, "One day we're walking through an airport and Kurt says, 'Axl Rose won't stop calling me.' Nirvana didn't want to turn into GunsNRoses, so Kurt started talking shit in interviews, and then Axl started talking back. It went back and forth like 10th grade bull. This culminated in a much publicized flare-up between Cobain and Rose backstage at the 1992 MTV Music Video Awards. Kirk Hammett described his version of events to Revolver, explaining how Rose escalated the matter by angrily confronting Cobain and threatening physical violence. According to Hammett, Cobain brushed it off and just said, "That guy's nuts." In Grohl's conversation with Esquire, he also touched upon the issue and how Cobain and his wife, Courtney Love, got into a verbal sparring match with Rose. After Nirvana turned down the opportunity to team up with Metallica and GunsNRoses on the now infamous tour, Faith No More took the spot. The eclectic rock outfit was far from happy about the supporting gig, however, having already shared the stage with GNR beforehand. Speaking to Select in 1992, Faith No More bassist Billy Gould said, "Every band in the world might think they want to open for GunsNRoses, but let me tell you, it's been a real ugly personal experience having to deal with all the shit that surrounds this f***ing circus." Faith No More accepted the tour, but they continued to blast GNR in the press whenever the opportunity presented itself. In an interview with Kerrang, Gould said that Axl Rose and Slash eventually confronted Faith No More about their harsh words in the media, telling them they should leave if they didn't want to be on the tour. The band decided to stay on, while Gould added how he appreciated Rose's handling of the incident. Appearing on Regis Tadio's podcast in 2021, Faith No More's singer Mike Patton stoked the flames again, revealing he even urinated on Rose's teleprompter during the tour.
It was just like such a drag touring with those guys. I hate to say it. They treated us like shit.
While the rivalry for who will dominate the airwaves and concert circuit between Bon Jovi and Guns N' Roses is understandable, it doesn't appear like there's much love lost between the groups in general. According to Rolling Stone, Axl Rose even punched a person who dared to suggest he looked like Jon Bon Jovi in 1987, despite Bon Jovi being seen as a major sex symbol of the era. In 2006, Bon Jovi himself vented to the New York Post about the attention that Guns N' Roses receives, saying, "I was reading this British rock magazine this month, and there was a story about Axl Rose and the $13 million Guns N' Roses record that was never made. That hasn't made a record in 13 years, and he gets all that attention." Bon Jovi added that he and his band had done a lot in that time, but Rose received the headlines for, quote, "the freak show aspect of him." Any music fan knows that the Eagles of death metal and Guns N' Roses are like oil and water, so much so that it surprised people when they were set to tour together in 2006. The match imploded after a concert incident resulted in Eagles of death metal leaving the tour altogether, or being fired, depending on who's asked. Speaking to NME, Eagles of Death Metal's Jesse Hughes explained how the crowd displayed animosity towards his band because they weren't Guns N' Roses. However, they won them over in the end. When Axl Rose arrived on stage, he proceeded to insult the band by referring to them as, quote, "the pigeons of shit metal," and fired them from the tour. As Hughes told the publication, Axl Rose is f***ing out of his mind. He wasn't even there when we played. He got there about 30 minutes after we got done playing. He waltzed onto the stage and went nuts. As per Hughes' version of events, GNR bassist Tommy Stinson stormed off the stage because of Rose's comments, while GNR's management attempted to smooth things over by allowing Eagles of Death Metal to continue the tour, to which they declined. Appearing on NME Radio in 2009, Hughes recalled the event once again, stating how he believes it all happened because of Eagle of Death Metal's friendship with Dave Grohl, whom Rose allegedly disliked and blamed for GNR's implosion in 1992. Rock supergroup Velvet Revolver formed out of the ashes of Guns N' Roses as Slash, Duff McKagan, and Matt Sorum teamed up with Dave Kushner and Scott Weiland in the early 2000s. Rather than wish his former bandmates well, Axl Rose decided to open old wounds and air the dirty laundry in a 2006 press release, in which he claimed Slash had disparaged both Weiland and McKagan in a meeting they had in 2005. Taking to Velvet Revolver's now-defunct website, Weiland rolled up his sleeves and stuck his hand in the mud to fling it right back at Rose, claiming that it was the instrumentalists who made GNR tick, not Rose. In 2008, Weiland received the boot from Velvet Revolver, which resulted in animosity between him and the remaining members. Ironically, he expressed sympathy toward Rose as he drew his ire towards the others and suggested they did to him what they had done to Rose before. As Weiland told Classic Rock, "Originally I thought, what a troll he must have been. What an evil man. But you know what? I have to say that I have an entirely different opinion of him today." As the self-appointed bad boys of rock, fans would expect Mötley Crüe and Guns N' Roses to be two peas in a pod, bonding over a shared passion for debauchery, hell-raising, and girls, girls, girls. Yet these groups were at loggerheads for the longest period, including an infamous time in 1991 in which the Crüe's lead singer Vince Neil challenged Axl Rose to a public clash of fisticuffs. It all started after GNR's then guitarist Izzy Stradlin reportedly came onto Vince Neil's ex-wife Cherise Riddell at a club in the late 80s. Stradlin reportedly touched her inappropriately, and Riddell slapped him, which resulted in Stradlin attacking her. Neil bided his time and unleashed his retribution on Stradlin at the 1989 MTV Music Awards. Allegedly, Neil slugged Stradlin, while a number of people intervened before the issue got further out of hand. Not one to be left out, Rose angrily confronted Neil at the event, but their argument didn't escalate beyond profanities. Instead, the pair proceeded to fight their war in the press of all places, with Rose even suggesting that he'd fight whenever and wherever Neil wanted. Eventually, Neil appeared on MTV News and challenged Rose to a televised fight where everyone could watch them battle.
And what I want is, Axl, if you're watching this, I want to challenge you to a fight. I'm going to give you the time, and I'm going to give you the place.
The Australian-formed band Kings of the Sun tasted an appetizer of success in the late 80s and early 90s, but they never became a global tour de force like Guns N' Roses.
Nonetheless, Kings of the Sun was set to open for GNR when the US band rolled into Sydney, Australia in 1988. However, the band members had their set cut short and then were dumped out of the venue unceremoniously. Making matters worse, Axl Rose went on stage to explain the reason. GNR wasn't happy about an article in which Kings of the Sun said GNR took a lot of influence from another band, Rose Tattoo. The solution? To publicly embarrass them in front of the audience. Chatting about the incident to Triple M Rock News in 2024, Kings of the Sun drummer Clifford Hode said it was never meant to be a jibe at GNR, but it was intended to draw awareness to what Rose Tattoo was doing. He added how he stands by what he said, and that it was simply a case of Axl being too sensitive and overly dramatic over nothing, saying, "If he was ridiculous and oversensitive back then, it's the same today and it doesn't wash with people anymore." How is it possible that Axl Rose can't stand GunsNRoses? Well, think about it for a second. Who has had more issues with members of GNR than Rose himself? Whether it be bandmates past or present, or even people adjacent to the band, it's likely that Rose has feuded with most of them at some point in the group's history.
It's a lot of attention put on a lot of negative stuff, and granted the negative stuff existed and might still exist or whatever.
For example, in 2009, while speaking to Spinner, Rose called Slash, quote, "a cancer and better removed, avoided." He also isn't opposed to using passive aggression while referring to ex-GNR members as former employees, rather than musical collaborators or bandmates, as he did to MTV News in 1999. At least Rose appears to be self-aware of his controversial comments in the past and how the reunited lineup might be gritting their teeth through smiles to just get on with the show for the sake of the big paydays. During a 2018 show, Rose proceeded to prattle off a list of people he wanted to thank, and included, "I want to thank the band that I'm sure hates me."